Hello and welcome to the Poetry Exchange. I'm Michael Shaeffer.
And I'm Fiona Bennett. Great to be back, Michael, with another episode.
Yes, indeed.
And I'm sure with lots of news as well.
We do have a piece of news, Fiona.
Oh, what's that piece of news, Michael, that you're thinking of?
Well, we're both quite excited, as you can tell. We're being a bit silly. We're really thrilled to have been asked to go back to Latitude this year. We were there last year and we spoke to Nadine Shah and Hannah Jane Walker. You can listen to that episode in our archive. And we're really excited to be asked back. It's a real privilege, isn't it, Foo? We had such a great time.
It was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And the opportunity of having an exchange in that slightly different way to our usual kind of somebody on their own in a private space having the conversation, but that more kind of audience-focused event is lovely.
Yeah.
And there is something very special about being in amongst all these extraordinary creators and makers of music, song, poetry, conversation, and that all bubbling around outside the tent that you're in, and then having the opportunity to be there with two guests to be announced, talking to us about the poem that's been a friend to them.
Yeah, so that's the second thing that we don't know that yet. Who we're going to be talking to?
No.
We'll keep you informed about all of our Latitude news as we hear it.
And there is some more news.
Is it?
Yeah. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, Michael. We're going to be going to Norfolk and Norwich Festival and doing 2 days of exchanges there.
How lovely. When is this thing?
Well, May the 22nd and May the 23rd.
I think I'm free. Oh. I'll have to check.
Well, you will. Get your diary out now. Yes, it's fantastic. We're going to be part of Norfolk and Norwich Festival, which is a wonderful festival. And we're being hosted by the National Centre for Writing. And that region and Norwich itself is a great place for literature and lovers of literature and writers. So I'm sure we're going to have a really gorgeous time there. Fabulous.
So we're going to put some details up on the website about that. Is this kind of event that people can book a slot to come and talk to us and do an exchange?
Yeah. I think, in fact, on this occasion, we'll put some information on our site. I'm pretty sure people have to book through the festival office, but we'll put all the links on our site so people can find that.
Very good. And the name of the festival again?
It's Norfolk and Norwich Festival.
Excellent. So Latitude is July the 16th to the 19th, and you can just go online and book your tickets through them. Hope to see you there.
So it's been very lovely talking about festivals and summery things, but Michael, it's time, I think, for you to take us into this month's episode.
Well, we are still just at the end of winter, so I thought it would be good to slip this one in. So you're going to be listening to myself and Fiona talking about Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost, the poem that's been a friend to Victoria. I've got lots of questions already.
Yes, of course.
But it would be great if you could read it out loud for us, and then I'll pepper you.
Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I noticed that you don't really need this piece of paper, but
don't,
you know this poem.
I do know it, and it's also, because it's such a regular rhyming poem, it's like a little machine for remembering itself. You know, I think it's like a jewel, really. You've just got, you've got 4 verses and 4 end rhymes, and a really, really tight pattern. So it's a very, very easy poem to learn.
Have you known it a long time?
I think so. I think it's one of those poems that's always been there, because it's in lots of anthologies, and it's in anthologies for little children. But I think I've probably got to know it a lot over the past couple of decades, because I do a lot of work with poetry as a therapeutic agent, and this is a poem that speaks to people, whether they're 5 years old or 90 years old. There's something about the magic of winter. There's something about relationships with animals, being outside, and then it's also a poem that quite a lot of people tell me was read as a eulogy at a funeral. So there's the kind of big questions in it about mortality and responsibility, as well as just the really concrete sort of visual side of it. So it's got this huge metaphorical hinterland, even though it's really, really simple.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
I found myself immediately, when I read it through for myself, going, I don't know whose woods they are. Who is the he? Who is the he whose house is in the village that will not see me stopping here?
Yeah.
Who is that he?
Well, I think it could be any number of he's. So again, although it's very concrete, it's completely non-specific. So you know it's probably not contemporary because there's somebody with a horse. So we're not used to riding horses around anymore. But on the other hand, we've always got somebody who we think might be observing us doing something. So there's this kind of idea of transgression, that he's supposed to be going somewhere, but he's decided he's going to stop, and he's stopping to do something which is completely useless. We live in a culture that's all about being goal-oriented. He's just going to stop and watch the woods filling up with snow. So this he, it could be where he's supposed to be going to work. It could be some sort of inner parental critic who says you should be doing something useful. So there could be any number of different he's. And sometimes I think of it as being perhaps a tension between nature and culture. That there's something about the village which is all about people and social pressures and social responsibilities, and I'm somebody who really loves being on my own in the woods. So you sort of think, okay, they're all over there. I'm away. I'm sort of in the wilds. Because the woods. I mean, it could be literal woods, but it could be, any number of different takes on that. So I don't know who this he is, but it's somebody who's not there. He's in the village. So the speaker of the poem isn't going to be observed, doing whatever it is that he or she is doing. It doesn't tell us anything about the speaker, really.
And it's a moment of pause, this, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
This person is on his or her way.
Yes. Yeah.
To do something.
Yes.
We find out in the last stanza, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep.
Yeah.
But it just takes this moment to sort of be quiet and be present with what's happening, kind of appreciating that moment, the darkest evening of the year, the snow falling.
Definitely, yeah. And the word stopping is in the title, and it's in the first stanza, so that stopping is repeated. But there's a third character, because there's the person in the village, there's a person stopping, and then I think it's quite interesting, the horse. And you sort of think, what is the horse saying? He's asking if there's some mistake. So the horse is thinking, got to get on. So giving his harness bells a shake.
So on a more metaphorical level, how do you understand the horse?
Understand the horse? Not sure if there's any sort of direct association, but it always makes me smile because I've got this quite strong belief in the need to relate to non-human or more than human entities. So I think of the horse as being perhaps all these things that we ignore at our peril. If you think about environmental issues, we're just not listening to what the earth is telling us. And the woods and the horse are all part of that kind of more than human world. So So it reminds me a little bit of my dog at home. You know, the dog doesn't speak English, but you know, she's always trying to tell us something. You know, and I can just get that sort of picture of, you know, is there some mistake? You know, when you see an animal that you're close to who's got this sort of, you know, puzzlement. You know, what's going on here? This is quite peculiar. So I see that as the speaker of the poem isn't entirely alone, because they're there with with another creature, and that creature's got a take on the world. You know, thinks it should be, you know, heading on.
It's very important, the presence of the other being there, because otherwise it would have the potential to sort of be a scary thing. Being out in the middle of nowhere on your own. And in the dark of night and all the rest of it. You know, but because there is this other creature whose presence is very keenly felt, and you know, they're very present in the poem. It sort of manages to make the whole thing feel sort of cosy, and you know.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's got a kind of sort of Christmassy feel, hasn't it? And especially that idea of the harness bells. You know, that's a sort of cheerful note. And then they've got the word easy in that one as well. The kind of easy wind. It's not a howling wind. You know, so there's a sense of it. You know, like you say, it's not menacing. It's not scary.
The woods are lovely, dark and deep. You know, it could be the woods are cold, dark and deep. You know, and it'd be a whole different thing. It's a really warm feeling. In fact,
I mean, promises is very strong as well, isn't it? I have promises to keep.
It is, yeah.
I wonder whether that strikes very strongly for you in terms of that tension of the solitary and the.
I think so, and I think that's and it's not something that I've actually resolved, but I think for all of us there's this sense of what are we here for? You know, what's the purpose in life? And I think, you know, I'm 56 now, so I'm sort of getting into that kind of later life. You know, what is it that are my obligations? You know, not necessarily in any kind of oppressive way, but you sort of think, you know, you're given these years on earth. You know, what do we do with them? You know, what are those promises that we need to perhaps keep to ourselves or keep to other people, or even just in, you know, in terms of a vocation. You know, if you've got a calling to do something. What are you going to do about it? You know, are you going to keep that promise, or is it just going to sort of drift away and come to nothing?
So that's interesting. So in a way, you're talking there about really quite the big stuff. In a way, it feels to me, not just like promises to a number of people who you've said you'll do a thing for or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. And I think although this is a moment in time, I think the big questions are really, you know, really in this poem as well. And I think that's kind of the magic of a poem like this that's so open. You know, that it's got that timelessness, but it's also got time too. You know, he's got to get somewhere. He's got to keep these promises. You know, and whether sleep is just the end of the day, like he's got to tick things off his to-do list, or is it the kind of big sleep, you know, at the end of life? I mean, that's left quite open. And then again, I think there's that paradox of the darkest evening of the year as well. You know, so there's something beautiful going on at this, you know, really sort of dismal time of the year. And again, that darkest evening of the year, I think, you know, people can see things like depression and or, you know, sort of catastrophic loss, or you know, something like that. But even when, you know, things are really dreadful, you know, there might always be this, you know, this little horse, or the beauty of the snow. So I think it's a poem about not pinning things down. You know, that things are one way, but they're also the other way as well. And I did read that Robert Frost claims to have written it in a great sort of spurt of energy. So he was working on a long poem, and he was up all night, sort of slaving away, and then he got up at dawn, and this poem just came to him.
Just fell out.
Yeah, I mean, who knows whether that's true or not? But sometimes I think there's something quite mystical about those sorts of poems. You know, as if they're somehow given. You know, that it's more than just, you know, this American, you know, 20th century poet on his farm.
Yeah, and that idea of being available, which is, of course, what this moment is as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is if you don't stop, you're not gonna. Yeah. You know, the moment of pause is that availability, and so there's a lot kind of coming together, isn't there, in this poem?
Definitely. I feel even more excited now because that's that's given me another dimension to it. Which is this idea that you have to be ready, to catch that moment. You do have to stop, and it's almost as if he couldn't have arrived at this if he hadn't been up all night working hard on something else.
Yeah. But I love that the both are necessary, and that feels all kind of in here too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I knew this poem a little bit, but it's just been opened up so much more for me in this conversation. And I'm really I love that it holds these two things, that it contains that tension of stopping and pause and with purpose and moving forward and all the rest of it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's really live for me now because for some reason my 60th birthday on the horizon has become quite a big thing, and there's lots of things I want to do before I get to to that particular threshold. And there's no particular reason for that. I just sort of went through 40, 50 and it didn't seem like a big deal, but there are things I want to do, or sort of promises to keep, I suppose.
To yourself.
To myself, yeah, and that pressure does feel enlivening. It doesn't feel like a sort of morbid thing.
No.
It thinks, get on with it.
There's a sense
get
of
hold of
purpose
life.
attached.
Yeah, definitely, yeah, and excitement and kind of joyfulness in it. And I suppose one thing about the darkest evening of the year is that after the darkest evening, it doesn't get any darker. So it's you're kind of moving back into the light. Yeah.
Into the light.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah.
It's interesting thinking about that in relation to poem as friend. Yeah. What kind of friend is it for you?
Well, I suppose because it's such an easy poem to learn by heart, it is the kind of friend that maybe you carry in your heart. Like you would with a favourite poem. Perhaps this poem is a little bit, I don't know, like a close relative, or perhaps even a grandparent almost. That has known you, sort of forever. So it's got that kind of quality to it,
and almost part of you. Somehow,
yeah, absolutely.
Actually.
Yeah. Because I think if you do know a poem, then you have embodied it somehow. Probably the same thing applies to learning lines for a play. That you're sort of taking them into your whole person.
Can I ask how you, in your own life, either bring together or hold the tension between kind of wanting to allow yourself time to pause, to get lost, to not know where you're going perhaps, and this thing of going, actually there's things I want to do.
Yeah.
How do you hold that?
Yeah, I think the idea of balance is something I've realised for me is completely pie in the sky. I just can't achieve balance. So it's a bit of a kind of crazy pendulum.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So it's like I like to be really social, and then I like to really shut the door, and then be really social again.
But that is its own kind of balance.
Yeah, it is its own kind of balance.
Over a period of time, you can go, well, there's balance there.
Yeah. I suppose so.
Yeah.
I suppose so. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So it's kind of accepting that it's not a resolvable tension. Yeah. That you. Yes. Yeah.
But actually, that's what's beautiful about the poem, is it's just sort of acknowledging that.
Yeah, it's true.
And it's kind of going, that's there. It's like it's not soluble.
No.
But that's okay.
Yeah. Actually, I hadn't really seen that before, but that's the crux of the poem, isn't it? There's that word "but." Sitting there, the beautiful woods. I'm going to stay here. No one can see me. No one's watching me. And then this kind of "but" comes in. And you get this sort of sense of, okay, I'm off now. Things to do. Yeah, miles to go. Yeah.
Well, no, this poem is a story of a journey.
It is a journey poem. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And that's such a. It's almost a cliche, isn't it? The kind of life journey. But we definitely experience our lives in that way. That we are going somewhere. And we don't know where we've come from. We don't know where we'll end up ultimately. But it feels like a journey.
It's interesting. It's almost as if you've had this moment of pause in your life fairly recently, where you've gone, I have a sense that there's something I need to do. What is it? And you've kind of gone, right, I think I want to gather all of this stuff that I've been doing through my life and exploring and I've been interested in, and try to somehow bring them together to sort of catalyse them in some way together and see what kind of comes out at the end. You know?
To make sense of something. Which I think is what a poem does really brilliantly. You know, that you've got all these kind of very vague questions, but this poem is like a sort of crystallisation of what they might be. And I hadn't realised, because I said I didn't quite know what we were going to talk about, just how much that that speaks to me, with those last lines.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Stopping by woods on a snowy evening. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it's queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there's some mistake. The only other sounds, the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep. But I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep.
That was Fiona with the gift reading at the end there.
Our thanks to Victoria for coming to see us and giving us those wonderful thoughts and perspectives on that very well-known poem, which is now known to me in a completely new and fresh way. And our thanks to her for allowing us to share the conversation with you. So it's been a busy month in lots of ways, and one of the things we've been doing is just kind of cleaning up and checking all our lists of all the people who've ever come and nominated a poem and organising our databases and things. And it's wonderful to see our growing number of people who we haven't necessarily met, who we don't know, but who've signed up to the newsletter and who are getting updates from us, not on a very regular basis. I think we usually do about 4 a year. So if you are enjoying listening and you want to get a bit closer and hear a bit more from us, then do go to the contact page on the website, and it's really easy there just to sign up to the newsletter.
And it always helps to get reviews on iTunes. That really helps the podcast, and retweets on Twitter and all of that stuff.
So wherever you are, whatever your weather, snowy or otherwise, wishing you a pleasant rest of the day or night, and looking forward to being back next month with another episode. Thank you for listening.